Clara Thompson never imagined she would one day marry a billionaire. Growing up in Blue Creek, a small working-class town where most people worked at the local paper mill, she was taught that hard work and kindness mattered more than money or status. Her father fixed cars at the town's only garage, coming home with grease-stained hands that told the story of an honest day's work. Her mother taught third grade at Blue Creek Elementary, often spending her own money on classroom supplies for children whose families couldn't afford them. From an early age, Clara showed a natural curiosity about how things worked. She would follow her father around the garage, asking endless questions about engines and mechanics. At home, she built elaborate water systems in the backyard, diverting rainwater through a series of handmade canals and filters. Her parents noticed this passion and encouraged it, even when money was tight. "You see problems others don't even notice," her father told her one evening as they sat on their porch watching a summer storm. And more importantly, you see solutions. When Clara won a science scholarship to attend university, the whole neighborhood celebrated. They held a potluck dinner in the community center, and everyone brought dishes to share. Mrs. Patel from 2 streets over made her famous butter chicken. Old Mr. Jenkins, who rarely left his house, showed up with homemade lemonade. Even the high school principal came to congratulate her. "This town raised you," her mother whispered as they looked around at their neighbors, "but you'll go further than any of us ever dreamed." At university, Clara studied environmental engineering, focusing on water systems. While other students dreamed of high-paying corporate jobs, Clara's mind was on communities like her hometown, places where clean water wasn't something people took for granted. She spent her summers volunteering in developing countries, helping design simple, sustainable water purification systems for villages without access to clean drinking water. After graduation, she turned down several lucrative job offers to work for a non-profit organization called Waterworks. Her starting salary was barely enough to cover her small apartment and student loan payments, but the work fulfilled her in ways money never could. She traveled to remote villages in Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia, working with local communities to implement water systems they could maintain themselves. "The solutions must belong to the people who use them," she often said to her team. "We're just here to help them find their way." By 30, Clara had established herself as a leading expert in sustainable water solutions. Her innovative approach combined modern engineering with traditional knowledge, respecting local customs while improving health outcomes. She published papers in scientific journals but took more pride in the thank you letters from village elders and the children's drawings that decorated her office walls. It was at a charity gala for global water initiatives that she first met Alexander Reed. Clara wasn't supposed to attend. She had been in the office finalizing a proposal for a new project in Ethiopia when her boss called. "Our keynote speaker just canceled," her boss explained frantically. "You need to fill in. The room will be full of potential donors, and no one knows our projects better than you." Clara had protested. She had dirt under her fingernails from testing soil samples and was wearing the same wrinkled button-up shirt she'd worn yesterday. But 3 hours later, she found herself in a borrowed dress standing at a podium in front of the city's wealthiest philanthropists. She didn't use fancy words or emotional appeals. Instead, she spoke plainly about the communities she'd worked with, showing before and after photos of children who no longer had to walk miles for contaminated water. She explained the technical aspects of their solutions in simple terms, and shared stories of the local engineers they had trained who now ran their own water projects. "We don't just build wells," she concluded. "We build partnerships that last long after we leave. Clean water isn't charity. It's a fundamental right and the foundation for communities to thrive on their own terms." The applause was polite but not overwhelming. Clara stepped away from the podium, relieved the ordeal was over. She planned to slip out early, change back into her comfortable clothes, and return to her soil samples. "You didn't mention money once," said a quiet voice behind her as she headed for the exit. Clara turned to find a tall man with kind eyes and a thoughtful expression. Unlike the other men in custom-tailored tuxedos, he wore a simple black suit that looked like it might have come off a department store rack. His tie was slightly crooked. "I'm sorry," Clara said, confused. "Everyone else tonight talked about donation goals and funding targets," the man explained. "You talked about people and solutions. It was refreshing." "Oh," Clara smiled. "Well, the money matters, of course. But it's just a tool. The real work happens in the communities. The man nodded, then held out his hand. I'm Alex Reed. Clara shook his hand, noticing calluses that seemed out of place at a black tie gala. Clara Thompson. Only later would she learn that Alexander Reed was the founder of Green Tech Solutions, a company that had revolutionized renewable energy storage. His innovations had made him billions, but he maintained a notoriously low profile, avoiding the spotlight and rarely attending public events. That night, they talked for hours in a quiet corner of the ballroom. Alex asked thoughtful questions about her work, drilling into technical details most people's eyes would glaze over at. Clara found herself drawing water filtration systems on cocktail napkins, excited to share her ideas with someone who genuinely understood them. Why Ethiopia for your next project? He asked. The northern region is experiencing longer drought periods due to climate change, Clara explained. But there's a promising aquifer system we believe could be accessed with minimal environmental impact using a community-based approach. Alex listened intently. What's your biggest challenge? Besides funding? Clara laughed. Finding pumping equipment that can be maintained locally with available parts and skills. By the end of the evening, Alex had offered to have his company's engineers look into designing simpler, more durable pumps specifically for the conditions in northern Ethiopia. Clara initially hesitated. She had dealt with corporate help before, which often came with strings attached. No publicity, no branding, no corporate agenda, Alex assured her, seeming to read her concerns. Just engineers solving a problem because it's interesting and important. Over the next 6 months, Clara and Alex collaborated on the Ethiopia project. Their professional relationship slowly evolved into friendship. Alex would send her prototypes to test, and Clara would return them with detailed notes and suggestions. They exchanged long emails about sustainability challenges and potential solutions, occasionally arguing over technical approaches but always respecting each other's expertise. When Clara finally traveled to Ethiopia to implement the project, Alex asked if he could join, not as a CEO or donor, but as an extra pair of hands. For 3 weeks, they worked alongside the local team, digging trenches, laying pipes, and training community members on system maintenance. In the evenings, they sat outside Clara's simple tent, looking at stars brighter than any city sky would allow. They talked about their childhoods. Alex had grown up with a single mother who worked 3 jobs to support him, his interest in engineering sparked by fixing their constantly breaking down car and appliances. They shared dreams of a world where technology served humanity's basic needs before luxury wants. On their last night in Ethiopia, with the project successfully completed, Alex took Clara's hand under the starlight. I've spent my life building things, he said quietly, but nothing has felt as meaningful as these past few weeks. Clara looked at this billionaire with dirt under his fingernails and sunburn on his nose, and realized she had fallen in love not with his wealth or status, but with his heart and mind. Their courtship continued back home, deliberately private and refreshingly normal. Alex took Clara to a local diner for their first official date, where they ate burgers and shared a chocolate milkshake. Clara introduced him to her favorite bookstore, where they spent hours browsing together. They went hiking on weekends, Alex carrying the heavier backpack without being asked, Clara finding the best trails with mountain views. When Alex finally brought Clara to his home, she had expected something imposing and grand. Instead, she found a surprisingly modest house on a large piece of land outside the city. The living room held more books than furniture, and his kitchen showed signs of someone who actually cooked rather than ordered in. My company takes up enough space in the world, he explained, seeing her surprise. I wanted my home to be just that, a home. After 2 years of dating, they married in a simple ceremony in Clara's hometown. The celebration was held in the same community center where her neighbors had once gathered to celebrate her scholarship. Mrs. Patel brought butter chicken. Mr. Jenkins, now using a walker, served homemade lemonade. Alex fit in seamlessly, chatting with Clara's father about engines and helping her former teachers carry food trays. After their honeymoon, a working trip to help with water projects in Indonesia, at Clara's insistence, they settled into married life. Clara continued her work with waterworks, refusing to let her marriage change her professional identity. Alex expanded GreenTech's focus on accessible technology for developing regions, often consulting Clara on projects. They were happy in their private world, a partnership built on shared values and genuine respect. Clara never tried to fit into the socialite role people expected of a billionaire's wife. Alex never asked her to. Neither of them could have predicted how their quiet, purpose-driven life would collide with the expectations of high society, or how an overlooked invitation would lead to one of the most talked-about social statements of the year. The gold-trimmed envelope arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered by courier rather than regular mail. It sat on the kitchen counter while Clara and Alex enjoyed their breakfast ritual. Strong coffee for him, herbal tea for her, and a shared plate of whatever fruit was in season. They were discussing the upcoming water project in Malaysia when Alex noticed the envelope. "Looks fancy," he said, wiping blueberry juice from his fingers before picking it up. The envelope bore the Westfield family crest, a lion and falcon flanking a shield, embossed in gold leaf. Inside was a heavy cardstock invitation, the paper so thick it barely bent between Alex's fingers. "The annual Westfield charity ball," he read aloud, his expression neutral. "Black tie required, 7 o'clock, May 15th. The Grand Westfield Estate." Clara glanced up from her project notes. The Westfield Ball was the social event of the year, exclusive, extravagant, and featured in society magazines worldwide. Victoria Westfield had been running it since inheriting the family fortune 30 years ago. Each year the ball raised millions for various charities, though the event itself cost almost as much as it raised. "Are you planning to go?" Clara asked, knowing Alex typically avoided such ostentatious gatherings. Alex frowned slightly as he examined the invitation more closely. "That's odd. It's addressed only to me." He flipped the card over, checking for any mention of a +1. There was none. "Maybe they assumed I wouldn't want to attend," Clara suggested with a small smile. They wouldn't be wrong, but Alex knew better. The Westfield invitations were famously precise, every name carefully considered and deliberately included or excluded. "Nothing about them was accidental. I'll call Henry," Alex said, referring to his longtime assistant. "Probably just a mix-up." Later that day, Henry reported back with news that made Alex's jaw tighten. There had been no mistake. The invitation was intentionally for Alexander Reed only. Henry had spoken directly to Victoria Westfield's social secretary, a woman known for her diplomatic handling of awkward situations. She said, and I quote, "Mrs. Reed is not on this year's guest list," Henry explained uncomfortably. When I pressed for a reason, she merely stated that Mrs. Westfield personally approves all attendees. Alex thanked Henry and hung up, his usually calm demeanor disturbed. He and Clara had been married for almost 3 years now. While they rarely attended high society functions together, when they did, they were always invited as a couple. That evening, as they prepared dinner together in their kitchen, a routine they maintained despite having staff who could cook for them, Alex mentioned the call with Henry. "Victoria Westfield doesn't think I'm good enough for her precious ball," Clara said with a laugh, chopping vegetables with practiced efficiency. "I'm heartbroken, truly." But Alex didn't laugh. "It's disrespectful," he said quietly. "And it says something about what the event truly stands for." Clara put down her knife and touched Alex's arm. "Hey, it's really okay. I've never fit into that world and I don't want to. You should go. The ball raises money for good causes, regardless of how they choose their guest list." Alex remained troubled, but he nodded. The Westfield Charity Ball did indeed support worthwhile organizations. Last year's event had funded a children's hospital wing. The matter might have ended there if not for a chance encounter 2 days later. Alex was having lunch with Philip Chen, an old friend from his early startup days who now ran a successful venture capital firm. They were discussing potential investments in clean water technology when Philip mentioned the upcoming ball. "Looking forward to seeing you there," Philip said between bites of his sandwich. "Victoria put my wife and me at your table, but she mentioned you're coming solo. Everything okay with you and Clara?" Alex's fork paused midway to his mouth. "What do you mean?" "Well, Victoria said something about understanding that not all marriages work out and how she respects your privacy during this difficult time," Philip replied, suddenly looking uncomfortable. "I assumed, but I see from your face that I've misunderstood." Alex carefully placed his fork down. "Clara and I are perfectly fine. Victoria Westfield chose not to include my wife on the invitation, though she apparently had no problem discussing her assumptions about our marriage." Philip winced. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize. That's, that's not right. After lunch, Alex made another call, this time to Benjamin Wu, who sat on several charitable boards and moved easily through the highest social circles. I need to understand something. Ben, Alex said after exchanging pleasantries, why would Victoria Westfield exclude Clara from the ball invitation? There was a long pause before Benjamin answered. You want the truth, Alex, even if it's unpleasant? Always, Benjamin sighed. Victoria is traditional. She believes certain events should maintain certain standards. Her words, not mine. Standards? Alex's voice was dangerously quiet. Social pedigree, Alex, family background. The right schools, the right connections. Victoria builds her guest list like she's curating an exhibit. Every person chosen to reflect the image she wants to project. And Clara doesn't fit this image. Clara works for a nonprofit. She grew up in a town most people have never heard of. She wears the same 3 dresses to every function and talks about sewage systems at dinner parties. Benjamin said bluntly. Victoria once overheard her discussing composting toilets with the French ambassador's wife during dessert. Despite his anger, Alex almost smiled at the memory. Clara had indeed been explaining the revolutionary impact of composting toilets in water-scarce regions, complete with hand gestures, while everyone else discussed summer homes and yacht renovations. So she's not Westfield material, Alex concluded. Her words, not mine, Benjamin repeated. For what it's worth, I think it's short-sighted and, frankly, rather small-minded. Clara is brilliant, and anyone with sense would want her perspectives at their table. That night, Alex told Clara everything. Victoria's deliberate exclusion, the rumors about their marriage, the standards Clara apparently failed to meet. Clara listened quietly, sitting cross-legged on their bedroom floor where she had been organizing photos from her recent field trip. When Alex finished, she was silent for a moment, absently tracing the edge of a photograph showing a young girl drinking clean water from a newly installed tap. You know, she finally said, when I was 14, the rich kids from the neighboring town invited me to a party. I was so excited. They went to the fancy private school, had swimming pools and horses and everything we didn't in Blue Creek. Alex sat down beside her, waiting for her to continue. When I got there, they made it clear the invitation had been a joke. They wanted to see if the scholarship girl would actually show up, wearing whatever pathetic excuse for party clothes she might have. Clara's voice held no bitterness, just a matter-of-fact acceptance. I walked home 5 miles in the dark rather than call my dad to pick me up, because I didn't want him to see me crying. Alex took her hand, his anger at Victoria Westfield growing. The point is, Clara continued, people like Victoria Westfield have existed my entire life. They create arbitrary lines between worthy and unworthy, then congratulate themselves for knowing which side they stand on. She looked directly at Alex. I stopped caring about crossing those lines a long time ago. I haven't, Alex said quietly. I know, and I love you for it. Clara leaned against his shoulder. But this isn't worth your energy. Go to the ball, write a check for whatever good cause they're supporting this year and come home to me. Or don't go. Either way, Victoria Westfield doesn't get to determine our worth. Alex nodded, but his mind was already working in a different direction. Clara had stopped caring about crossing lines drawn by people like Victoria. But Alex had the resources to redraw the lines entirely. The next morning, Alex sent his regrets to the Westfield charity ball. The reply came swiftly. Victoria herself called, her voice dripping with practiced concern. Alexander, darling, I just received your response. We're so disappointed you won't be joining us. Is everything all right? Everything's fine, Victoria. I'm simply attending another event that evening with my wife. There was a pointed pause. Oh? I wasn't aware of another major function that night. Everyone who matters will be at the ball. Alex smiled to himself. That remains to be seen. Have a wonderful evening, Victoria. He hung up and immediately called Henry into his office. His assistant arrived with a notepad ready for instructions. Henry, I need you to clear my schedule for the rest of the day. We have an event to plan. An event, sir? Henry raised an eyebrow. Yes, something that will make Victoria Westfield's ball look like a backyard barbecue. And we have exactly 3 weeks to pull it off. Henry nodded, already making notes. And the guest list? Alex leaned back in his chair, a rare, mischievous smile crossing his face. That's where we're going to be very, very different from the Westfield ball. I want you to start with every person Victoria has ever deemed unworthy. That could be quite a lot of people, sir. Good, Alex said firmly. The more the better. As Henry turned to leave, Alex added, "And Henry? Not a word to Clara yet. This is going to be a surprise." While Clara spent the next week traveling to inspect water projects in rural Arizona, Alex set his plan in motion. He secured the city's most spectacular venue, the glass pavilion at Riverside Gardens with its panoramic views and soaring ceilings. He hired the most sought-after event planners, sworn to secrecy about the rapidly developing plans. Most importantly, he began making personal phone calls to friends and associates, describing an event that would celebrate genuine impact rather than inherited privilege. The response was overwhelming. From tech innovators to artists, from scientists to community leaders, people were eager to support a different kind of gathering. What Alex was creating wasn't just another gala. It was a statement about value and worth, about who deserves recognition in a world too often dazzled by surface rather than substance. And at the center of it all, though she didn't know it yet, would be Clara, the woman Victoria Westfield had deemed unworthy of her precious guest list. Clara returned from Arizona with dirt under her fingernails and satisfaction in her heart. The rural water project had gone better than expected, with local volunteers showing remarkable ingenuity in adapting the systems to their specific needs. She couldn't wait to tell Alex about the elderly man who had rigged up a simple filtration system using materials from his junk pile, improving on Clara's original design. As the car dropped her at their home, Clara noticed unusual activity. Henry hurried across the driveway, phone pressed to his ear, and quickly ended his call when he spotted her. "Welcome back, Mrs. Reed," he said, helping with her bags. "How is Arizona?" "Dusty, hot, and absolutely wonderful," Clara replied. "Where's Alex?" "Still at the office. Actually, he's in the garden with some people from the foundation." Henry's voice was oddly formal, his posture stiff. Clara raised an eyebrow. "Henry, are you okay? You look like you swallowed a frog." "Perfectly fine," he said quickly. "Mr. Reed asked me to send you to him as soon as you arrived." Still puzzled by Henry's behavior, Clara made her way through the house to the back garden. She could hear voices before she reached the French doors. Alex's deep tones mixed with several others she didn't recognize. When she stepped onto the patio, the conversation stopped abruptly. Alex was seated at the outdoor table with 4 people Clara had never met, papers spread between them. He jumped up when he saw her, his face lighting up as he crossed to embrace her. "You're back early. I wasn't expecting you until this evening," he said, hugging her tightly. "The last meeting wrapped up faster than expected," Clara explained, looking curiously at the strangers who were all watching them with interest. "What's going on here?" "Henry's acting weird and you've got a secret garden meeting." Alex laughed. "No secrets, just some foundation business." He turned to introduce her. "Clara, this is Diane from the PR team, Luis from event planning, Rebecca who runs our charitable partnerships, and Tom who handles communications." Clara shook hands with everyone, increasingly confused. The Reed Foundation mainly handled the couple's charitable giving, making grants to established organizations. It had a small staff who worked from an office downtown, not from their home. "And why would Alex need PR and event planners?" "We're just finishing up," Alex assured her. "Give me 15 minutes?" Clara nodded and headed inside to unpack. Something was definitely happening. But she was too tired from travel to press the issue now. A hot shower and change of clothes later, she found Alex alone in the kitchen, preparing her favorite post-trip treat, a simple peanut butter and honey sandwich. "Your meeting breakup?" she asked, accepting the sandwich gratefully. "All done," Alex confirmed, pouring her a glass of milk like they were both still kids. It was one of the small rituals they'd established. Comfort food after long trips away from each other. "So are you going to tell me what's happening with the foundation that requires secret meetings and makes Henry act like he's guarding nuclear codes?" Clara asked between bites. Alex sat across from her, his expression somewhere between excited and nervous. "We're planning an event. The foundation doesn't do events. We write checks and visit projects, but we don't throw parties," Clara pointed out. "We do now," Alex replied. "We're launching the Reed Foundation Humanitarian Awards." Clara put down her sandwich. "The what now?" "An annual ceremony recognizing individuals and organizations making extraordinary contributions to humanitarian causes, especially in overlooked areas." Alex spoke quickly like he'd rehearsed this explanation. No red tape, no politics, just genuine recognition of work that matters. That sounds actually really meaningful, Clara said slowly. But why now? And why all the secrecy? Alex took a deep breath. It's scheduled for May 15th. The date clicked immediately. The same night as the Westfield ball. Clara's eyes narrowed. Alex, what are you doing? Creating an alternative, he said simply. One that celebrates the right things and the right people. Clara put the pieces together. This is because Victoria Westfield didn't invite me to her party, isn't it? Alex had the decency to look slightly embarrassed, but he didn't deny it. That was the spark, yes. But the idea has merit beyond that. Think about it, Clara. How many brilliant minds get overlooked because they don't have the right connections? How many world-changing projects struggle for recognition while celebrities get praised for writing a check once a year? Despite herself, Clara was intrigued. What exactly are you planning? Alex's excitement grew as he explained. The Reed Foundation Humanitarian Awards would honor 10 recipients each year across different categories: water and sanitation, education, public health, climate solutions, and more. Each honoree would receive substantial funding to expand their work, along with connections to potential partners. The ceremony itself would be elegant but focused on the honorees rather than on showing off wealth. And the best part, Alex continued, is who we're inviting. Scientists instead of socialites, engineers instead of heiresses, community organizers instead of celebrities. No celebrities at all? Clara asked skeptically. Only the ones who do real work, Alex admitted. There are a few who use their platforms for genuine change. As Alex talked, Clara could see how much thought he'd already put into this. What had started as a reaction to a petty slight had evolved into something with real potential for good. You really care about this, she observed. I do. Alex nodded. The Westfield ball raises money, sure, but imagine what could happen if we celebrated the people who actually solve problems rather than just those who write checks. Clara was quiet for a moment, considering. I think it's a wonderful idea, she finally said, though I wish it hadn't started because of me. It didn't start because of you, Alex corrected her. It started because of Victoria Westfield's narrow vision of who matters in this world. You just helped me see it clearly. Over the next week, Clara became increasingly involved in the planning. She suggested focusing on innovations that could be replicated widely, rather than one-time projects, and insisted that honorees include local community members, not just Western experts working in developing regions. She pushed back when the event planner suggested extravagant decor. The point isn't to outshine the Westfield ball in luxury, she reminded them. It's to outshine it in meaning. In her element, Clara reached out to colleagues across the humanitarian sector, seeking nominations for worthy honorees. The response was overwhelming. Names poured in from around the world. A woman in Bangladesh who had developed a low-cost method for removing arsenic from groundwater. A team in Peru creating solar-powered irrigation systems. A former refugee who returned to his war-torn country to rebuild schools. Alex watched with pride as Clara transformed from reluctant participant to passionate advocate. This was the woman Victoria Westfield had deemed unworthy of her guest list. Brilliant, passionate, and connected to a global network of problem solvers that high society would never meet at their champagne galas. 2 weeks before the event, as invitations went out by email rather than gold-embossed card, another of Clara's practical suggestions, rumors began circulating through the city's elite circles. An alternative to the Westfield ball, hosted by Alexander Reed. People who had already RSVP'd to Victoria's event were suddenly claiming scheduling conflicts. The first hint of trouble came when Victoria herself called Alex directly. Alexander, darling, her voice dripped honey over the phone line, I'm hearing the strangest rumors about some event you're planning. Not rumors, Victoria. The Reed Foundation Humanitarian Awards will be held on the 15th, the same evening as your ball. There was a long pause. I see, Victoria finally said. And may I ask why you've chosen that particular date? The Westfield ball has been held on the third Saturday in May for 30 years. Pure coincidence, Alex replied mildly. It was the only date that worked for our honorees' travel schedules. Victoria was too skilled a social operator to show anger directly. Well, this puts many people in an awkward position, having to choose between events. I imagine it does, Alex agreed, though I believe people should attend whichever event aligns with their values. And what exactly do you mean by that? Victoria's voice sharpened slightly. Simply that the Westfield Ball celebrates wealth and status, while our event celebrates innovation and impact. Different priorities for different people. After ending the call, Alex found Clara in her home office, reviewing nominations for the education category. Her reading glasses were perched on the end of her nose, her hair pulled back in a messy knot. She looked up when he entered. "Victoria called," he said, sitting on the edge of her desk. "Let me guess." Clara smiled. "She's not happy about the competition. She suggested I was putting people in an awkward position, making them choose." Clara removed her glasses. "Are you having second thoughts?" Alex shook his head. "No, but I'm wondering if I'm doing this for the right reasons. Did I start this whole thing just to get back at her for snubbing you?" Clara considered this carefully. "Maybe that's how it started," she admitted. "But look at what it's becoming. The people we're recognizing deserve this platform, regardless of Victoria Westfield and her opinions. So you think we should continue?" "I know we should," Clara said firmly. "But not to spite Victoria. That gives her too much power over us. We do this because it matters." Alex nodded slowly. "You're right. As usual. I usually am," Clara grinned. "Now let me get back to these nominations. Did you know there's a high school physics teacher in Detroit who built a fully functioning water quality testing lab with salvaged equipment? His students are mapping contamination levels across the city and bringing the data to city council meetings." Alex watched her face light up as she talked about the teacher's work. This was the real reason for the Reed Foundation Humanitarian Awards, not to counter a social slight, but to give a platform to people like Clara, who saw solutions where others saw only problems. 1 week before the event, RSVPs for the Reed Foundation Humanitarian Awards had exceeded all expectations. The original venue was no longer large enough, forcing a last-minute change to the city's convention center, the only space available on short notice that could accommodate the growing guest list. Meanwhile, whispers circulated that the Westfield Ball was seeing unprecedented cancellations. Society columnists speculated about a power shift in the city's philanthropic circles, the old guard versus the new innovators, tradition versus transformation. What had begun as one man's response to his wife's exclusion was quickly becoming something much bigger, a referendum on what truly deserved celebration in a world facing mounting challenges. And as the day approached, both Clara and Alex found themselves caught up in forces they hadn't quite expected to unleash. 3 days before the Reed Foundation Humanitarian Awards, Clara stood in their bedroom staring at her open closet with a frown. Behind her, Alex was adjusting his tie in the mirror, getting ready for a final planning meeting. "I have nothing to wear," Clara announced, running her hand along the modest row of dresses she owned. Alex glanced over, amused. "You sound like a character in one of those romantic comedies you pretend not to like." Clara shot him a look. "I'm serious. These are my work dresses, conference dresses, and exactly 2 fancy event dresses, both of which everyone on the planning committee has seen multiple times." She pulled out a simple navy blue gown. "This one has a coffee stain from last year's fundraiser, and this one," she held up a forest green dress, "is missing a button." Alex walked over and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Buy something new, something you love. You know how I feel about spending money on clothes I'll rarely wear." Clara sighed, leaning back against him. It was a long-standing point of principle for Clara. Despite their wealth, she remained careful with personal spending, especially on things she considered frivolous. Her practical upbringing had instilled habits that even marriage to a billionaire couldn't change. "This is different," Alex urged. "This event matters to both of us. And frankly, given that half the city will be watching to see what the woman Victoria Westfield deemed unworthy is wearing, you deserve something that makes you feel wonderful." Clara turned in his arms. "Is that what this is about? Showing Victoria up?" "No," Alex said firmly. "It's about you feeling comfortable and confident while hosting the most important event we've ever created. The fact that Victoria might choke on her champagne when she sees photos of you looking stunning is merely a bonus." Clara laughed despite herself. "You're terrible." "I'm practical," Alex corrected. "And speaking of practical, I took the liberty of setting up some options. Designers are sending over samples this afternoon. No pressure to choose any of them, but at least see if something catches your eye." Clara narrowed her eyes. "You went behind my back to get me a dress?" "I asked Henry to make some calls," Alex admitted. Kill me later. Right now we have a meeting to get to. As they drove to the convention center, Clara's phone buzzed with a text from Gabriela, a water systems engineer she'd worked with in Colombia. Just landed. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Clara smiled and showed Alex the message. Gabriela was one of 10 honorees flying in for the awards ceremony, each bringing a unique story of impact and innovation. Clara had personally insisted that the foundation cover all expenses for the honorees and their families, ensuring they could attend regardless of financial circumstances. At the convention center, organized chaos greeted them. Workers on ladders hung lighting fixtures from the soaring ceiling. Florists arranged simple but elegant centerpieces featuring plants native to the regions where honorees worked. Tech crews tested the sound system and massive screens that would showcase each honoree's work. Luis, the event planner, hurried over with his ever-present tablet. We have a small crisis with seating arrangements, he announced without preamble. What happened? Clara asked. We received 47 additional RSVPs overnight, Luis explained, looking both stressed and pleased, including the mayor, 3 council members, and the entire board of National Science Foundation. Alex raised his eyebrows. That's unexpected. It gets better, Luis continued. The governor just called personally to ask if she can present one of the awards. She apparently met one of our honorees during a trade mission to Singapore last year and was profoundly impressed by her work. Clara exchanged a surprised look with Alex. What had begun as their private response to a social slight was rapidly becoming a major public event with political dimensions neither of them had anticipated. And there's one more thing, Luis added, his voice dropping slightly. Victoria Westfield's office called. She's requesting 2 tickets. A stunned silence followed this announcement. Victoria Westfield wants to attend our event? Clara finally asked. The same night as her own ball? Luis nodded. Her assistant said she would make an appearance early in the evening to show support before heading to her own event. Alex's expression darkened. She wants to save face, make it look like she approves of our event so it seems less like competition and more like complementary functions. Clara considered this. Does it matter why she wants to come? If she's willing to publicly acknowledge our honorees, isn't that a good thing? It's calculated, Alex argued. She's trying to maintain control of the narrative. Maybe, Clara conceded. But refusing her would only create unnecessary drama. This night isn't about Victoria or us or social politics. It's about the honorees. After a moment, Alex nodded. You're right. Tell her office she's welcome to attend, Luis. Seat her somewhere appropriate but not prominent. As they continued the walkthrough, making final decisions on lighting, timing, and presentation flow, Clara was struck by how thoroughly their lives had been consumed by this event over the past weeks. What had started as Alex's impulsive response to a slight had evolved into something that felt genuinely important, a chance to redirect attention and resources to people whose work truly mattered. That evening, back at home, Clara found several garment bags hanging in their bedroom. A polite note from Henry explained that the designers had sent options as requested, and a stylist would arrive tomorrow if Clara wanted assistance. Feeling both reluctant and curious, Clara unzipped the first bag. Inside was a gown so heavily beaded and structured it could probably stand up on its own. The second revealed a dress with so many ruffles Clara feared she'd get lost in them. The third, however, made her pause. It was a simple design in deep teal silk that reminded her of the lake near her childhood home. No beading, no frills, just clean lines and a color that made her eyes look more green than brown. When she slipped it on, it fit as though it had been made for her. Alex found her still wearing it, twirling slightly in front of the mirror. That's the one, he said from the doorway. Clara nodded, surprising herself. It feels right. Not too showy, but special enough for the occasion. You look beautiful, Alex said simply, crossing to kiss her cheek. The morning of the event arrived with unexpected news. The city's most widely read society columnist had published a piece titled, Westfield versus Reed, Battle of the Balls. The article detailed the unprecedented social split happening that evening, with quotes from anonymous sources about the mass exodus from the Westfield guest list. Half the city's elite are scrambling to see if the Reeds will still accept their RSVPs, the columnist wrote. The other half are desperately hoping their longtime ally, Victoria Westfield, won't. Notice their absence from her ball as they slip into the Reed Foundation event instead. Clara. Read the article over breakfast, frowning. This isn't what we wanted. It sounds like we're hosting some kind of revolt against Victoria. In a way we are, Alex pointed out. Just not for the reasons they think. The day passed in a blur of last-minute preparations. By late afternoon, Clara found herself back at home getting ready, the teal dress laid carefully across their bed. As she pinned up her hair, her phone rang. The screen showed Gabriella's name. Clara. Gabriella's voice crackled with excitement when Clara answered. You won't believe this. I just got a call from the White House Office of Science and Technology. They want to discuss scaling up our filtration system across multiple states. That's incredible, Clara exclaimed. How did they hear about your work? Apparently someone sent them information about all the honorees for tonight's ceremony, Gabriella explained. They've already contacted 3 of us about potential federal funding. After the call ended, Clara found Alex in his study adjusting his cufflinks. Did you send information about our honorees to the White House? She asked without preamble. Alex looked up, surprised. No, why? Clara explained Gabriella's call. Someone's been promoting their work beyond just our event. A slow smile spread across Alex's face. The snowball effect. Once people started talking about the ceremony, others got curious. The honorees' stories are compelling on their own. They just needed a platform. As their car approached the convention center that evening, Clara was stunned by the scene. A red carpet stretched from the curb to the entrance, lined with photographers and local news crews. Spotlights swept the night sky, and a sizable crowd had gathered behind velvet ropes to watch arrivals. This looks like the Oscars, not a humanitarian awards ceremony, Clara murmured, suddenly nervous. Alex squeezed her hand. People are excited about something new, something with substance. When their car door opened, camera flashes erupted. Clara stepped out, grateful for the simple elegance of her dress as Alex joined her, placing a steadying hand at the small of her back. Mr. Reed. Mrs. Reed. Over here. Photographers called. Clara leaned close to Alex. I thought we weren't inviting press. We invited a few key outlets to cover the honorees, Alex whispered back. The rest showed up on their own. Inside, the transformation of the convention center took Clara's breath away. The cavernous space felt intimate and warm, with clever lighting creating the illusion of a starry night above. Hundreds of guests mingled, creating a buzz of excitement. Clara spotted familiar faces, business leaders, politicians, scientists, and educators, all gathered to celebrate work that often went unrecognized. Luis appeared at their side, tablet in hand as usual. The honorees are in the green room, ready for their introduction. Governor's running 10 minutes late but sends her apologies. And, he paused dramatically, Victoria Westfield just arrived with her husband. Clara glanced across the room and spotted Victoria, resplendent in a crimson gown, her husband dutifully at her side. The woman was smiling and nodding at acquaintances, but Clara could see tension in her posture. Has anyone shown her to her seat? Clara asked. Not yet. She's been, mingling. Clara nodded decisively. I'll greet her myself. Alex looked surprised. Are you sure? Absolutely, Clara said, smoothing her dress. This night is about building bridges, not burning them. As Clara crossed the room toward Victoria, she felt strangely calm. The woman who had deemed her unworthy of inclusion, whose slight had inadvertently sparked this entire event, suddenly seemed smaller somehow. Not diminished exactly, but properly sized. Just one person among many, no more or less important than anyone else in the room. Victoria, Clara said warmly, extending her hand. Thank you for coming. We're honored to have you join us. Victoria's perfectly made-up face registered brief surprise before smoothing into a practiced, social smile. Clara, darling, what a lovely event you've put together. So creative to focus on these grassroots efforts. The honorees are extraordinary people, Clara agreed. I'm particularly excited for you to meet Gabriela Lopez, whose water filtration system has transformed health outcomes in 3 countries. I believe she's working on something that might interest your foundation as well. For a fleeting moment, something genuine flickered in Victoria's expression, a hint of actual interest breaking through the social mask. Is that so? Perhaps you could introduce us. I'd be delighted to, Clara replied, meaning it. Whatever her personal feelings about Victoria, Connections that might expand Gabriella's work were worth pursuing. "Let me show you to your table, and I'll make sure you meet before you need to leave for your ball." As Clara led Victoria through the crowd, she caught Alex's eye across the room. He gave her a subtle nod of approval, his face filled with pride. In that moment, Clara realized that what had begun as a response to exclusion had become something far more important. A chance to create inclusion on their own terms, bridging worlds that rarely connected for the benefit of all. The lights dimmed precisely at 8 o'clock. A hush fell over the packed convention center as a single spotlight illuminated the stage. Alex stepped into the light, handsome in his tuxedo, but with an approachable warmth that set him apart from the typical billionaire. "Good evening," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the state-of-the-art sound system. "My wife Clara and I welcome you to the first annual Reed Foundation Humanitarian Awards." From her seat in the front row, Clara watched Alex with pride. Despite his usual discomfort with public speaking, he looked completely at ease tonight, driven by genuine passion for what they had created together. "We gather not just to celebrate extraordinary achievements," Alex continued, "but to recognize that true impact often happens quietly, away from spotlights and red carpets, in places many of us will never visit." The audience listened intently as Alex explained the purpose of the awards, to shine light on innovations that solved real problems, created by people who rarely received recognition. As he spoke, images appeared on the massive screens behind him. Children drinking clean water from a village pump, students gathering around a solar-powered computer lab, a makeshift clinic where new mothers received care. "Tonight's honorees haven't changed the world by writing checks," Alex said. "They've changed it through persistence, ingenuity, and a refusal to accept that problems are unsolvable. They've changed it by getting their hands dirty." Clara felt a lump form in her throat. Alex caught her eye and smiled softly before continuing. "Before we begin, I want to thank my wife Clara," he said, extending his hand toward her, "not just for her work in creating tonight's event, but for showing me every day what it means to value substance over status, impact over image, and real change over recognition." The spotlight found Clara, and the audience broke into applause. She felt her cheeks warm as she nodded in acknowledgement, uncomfortable with the attention but deeply moved by Alex's words. "Now," Alex continued as the applause faded, "please join me in welcoming our Master of Ceremonies for the evening, Dr. David Chen, whose work in crisis medicine has saved countless lives across 4 continents." As a distinguished older man took the stage, Clara glanced across the room to where Victoria Westfield sat with her husband. The woman's expression was impossible to read, a social mask perfected over decades. But she was still here 30 minutes into the ceremony, with no signs of leaving for her own event. Dr. Chen began introducing the first honoree, Gabriela Lopez, detailing her journey from a young engineering student to the creator of a water filtration system now used in villages across South America and parts of Africa. "What makes Gabriela's work remarkable," Dr. Chen explained, "is not just its technical innovation, but its cultural adaptability. Her systems can be maintained using locally available materials and knowledge, ensuring communities aren't dependent on outside help." As Gabriela took the stage, the audience rose in a spontaneous standing ovation. The young woman looked momentarily overwhelmed before breaking into a brilliant smile. Dressed simply in a blue pantsuit, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, she embodied the spirit of the evening, substance over show. "I never expected to be standing in a room like this," Gabriela began in accented English. "My work happens in muddy villages and crowded city slums, not convention centers." She spoke without notes, describing how growing up watching her mother walk miles for clean water had fueled her determination to solve a problem many considered permanent. As she detailed the challenges and breakthroughs of her project, Clara noticed even Victoria Westfield leaning forward, genuinely engaged. One by one, the honorees took the stage. A former refugee who had created a mobile app connecting displaced persons with essential services. A retired teacher who had developed a literacy program now used in 15 countries. A young scientist whose affordable diagnostic tool could detect malaria from a single drop of blood. Between presentations, video segments showed the honorees in their work environments, not polished promotional films, but authentic footage capturing both the challenges and triumphs of their efforts. Halfway through the ceremony, Louis appeared at Clara's side, bending to whisper in her ear. "The live stream has over 2 million viewers," he said excitedly, "and Turner Reed Awards is trending nationwide." Clara's eyes widened in surprise. They had decided to stream the event online as an afterthought, mostly to allow the honorees' colleagues back home to watch. The idea that millions of strangers were tuning in had never occurred to her. The governor arrived just in time to present the award in the education category to a man who had created a network of schools in remote mountain villages. As she handed him the glass trophy and envelope containing grant funds to expand his work, she announced that the state would match the Reed Foundation's contribution. "This is exactly the kind of innovation our education system needs," the governor declared. "Not top-down mandates, but ground-up solutions from educators who understand their communities." As the ceremony continued, Clara noticed a steady stream of well-dressed individuals slipping into the back of the hall. Late arrivals who, she suspected, had attended the beginning of the Westfield Ball before deciding this was where they wanted to be. During a brief intermission, Clara made her way to the restroom and overheard two women touching up their makeup. Victoria's face when half her table left right after the first course. One woman said, with barely suppressed glee, "I thought she might faint dead away." "Can you blame people?" the other replied. "Over there it's the same old crowd congratulating themselves. Here we're actually learning something." Clara slipped into a stall before they could notice her, not wanting to embarrass them. But their words confirmed what she had suspected. The Westfield Ball, for the first time in 30 years, was not the uncontested social event of the season. Back in the hall, Clara found Victoria still at her table, though her husband had disappeared. Making a quick decision, Clara sat in the empty chair beside her. "I hope you're enjoying the evening," Clara said genuinely. Victoria studied her for a moment, her perfectly manicured fingers tapping lightly on her purse. "It's not what I expected," she admitted. "In a good way, I hope." "Your honorees are quite impressive," Victoria acknowledged. "Particularly Ms. Lopez. I had no idea water filtration could be so revolutionary." Clara nodded. "That's exactly why we created this event, to highlight work that doesn't usually get this kind of platform." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "You know, when I didn't include you on Alexander's invitation, it wasn't personal." Clara raised an eyebrow, waiting. "The Westfield Ball has traditions, standards," Victoria continued. "It's how my mother ran it and her mother before her. And those standards didn't include people like me," Clara finished for her. Victoria had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "You must understand there are expectations." "I do understand," Clara interrupted gently. "But maybe those expectations need to evolve. Look around this room, Victoria. These people are making real measurable differences in the world. Shouldn't they be the standard we aspire to?" Before Victoria could answer, the lights dimmed for the second half of the program. Clara excused herself and returned to her seat, leaving Victoria with something to consider. As the final honoree left the stage to thunderous applause, Alex returned to close the ceremony. Standing under the spotlight, he looked both exhausted and exhilarated. "Before we end this incredible evening," he said, "I want to invite someone very special to join me. The person whose vision shaped tonight's event and whose daily work embodies the spirit of what we're celebrating." Clara froze, suddenly understanding what was coming. "My wife, Clara Reed," Alex announced, extending his hand toward her. "Not as my spouse, but as the newly appointed executive director of the Reed Foundation." The audience erupted in applause as Clara stood, stunned. This was not part of the plan they had discussed. She made her way to the stage in a daze, taking Alex's outstretched hand. "What are you doing?" she whispered as she reached him. "Giving the foundation its best possible leader," he replied quietly, before turning back to the microphone. "Many of you know Clara as my wife," Alex told the audience. "But she is also one of the world's foremost experts in sustainable water systems. Having spent 15 years creating solutions in some of the most challenging environments on Earth, under her leadership, the Reed Foundation will expand its mission to identify, fund, and amplify innovations like those we've celebrated tonight." Clara found herself standing alone at the microphone as Alex stepped back. Looking out at the sea of faces, honorees whose work she deeply admired, guests ranging from world leaders to local teachers, even Victoria Westfield still in her seat, she took a deep breath. "I accept this role with humility and determination. she began, finding her voice. Not because I believe I have all the answers, but because I've spent my life asking better questions. She spoke briefly but passionately about her vision for the foundation, not as a traditional grant maker, but as an active partner to innovators and problem solvers worldwide. As she concluded, the audience rose in a standing ovation that continued for several minutes. The formal ceremony gave way to a reception where honorees, guests, and media mingled freely. Clara found herself moving from one conversation to another, introducing honorees to potential funders, connecting scientists with government officials, watching new collaborations form before her eyes. Near midnight, she finally found a quiet moment with Alex in a small side room. He handed her a glass of water, knowing she preferred it to champagne. "You're upset about the announcement," he said, reading her expression. "Not upset," Clara clarified. "Surprised? We never discussed me running the foundation." "Because you would have said no," Alex pointed out. "But watching you these past weeks, how you shaped this event, how you connected with the honorees, how you even managed to find common ground with Victoria Westfield, I realized you're exactly who we need." Clara took a sip of water, considering. "I have my own work, my own projects, which have prepared you perfectly for this," Alex argued gently. "Think about the scale of what you could accomplish, the number of projects like yours that you could support." Before Clara could respond, Henry appeared at the door looking apologetic for the interruption. "I'm sorry, but you both might want to see this," he said, holding out his tablet. On the screen was a breaking news alert. The headline read, "Westfield Charity Ball Ends. Early amid record low attendance." The article described how Victoria Westfield had ended her event 2 hours ahead of schedule after more than half the guests failed to appear or left early to attend the Reed Foundation Humanitarian Awards instead. Photos showed empty tables at the Westfield estate and a forlorn-looking string quartet playing to a nearly deserted ballroom. "I never wanted to hurt her event," Clara said, genuinely distressed. "You didn't," Alex assured her. "People made their own choices tonight about what matters to them." As if summoned by their conversation, Victoria herself appeared in the doorway. She had clearly come directly from her own event, still wearing her crimson gown, though her perfectly coiffed hair had begun to wilt slightly. "May I have a word?" she asked, her voice carefully controlled. Henry discreetly disappeared, closing the door behind him. Victoria crossed the room with practiced dignity, stopping before Clara and Alex. For a moment, no one spoke. "Your event was a success," Victoria finally said. "Mine was not." "Victoria, I'm sorry," Clara began, but the older woman held up a hand. "Don't apologize for excellence," Victoria said sharply. "In 30 years of hosting the ball, I've never had to face such a humbling evening." She straightened her shoulders. "But I did not build my reputation by failing to adapt." Clara and Alex exchanged a puzzled glance. "I propose a partnership," Victoria continued. "Next year we combine our events. The Reed Westfield Humanitarian Ball, my venue, guest list, and 30 years of experience. Your honoree's vision and—" She hesitated. "Your perspective." Clara was speechless. Alex looked equally stunned. "Think about it," Victoria said, reaching into her purse and extracting a business card that she handed to Clara. "We could create something truly extraordinary together." Without waiting for a response, Victoria turned and left as regally as she had arrived. Clara looked down at the embossed card in her hand, then up at Alex, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Well," she said, "I certainly didn't see that coming." Alex laughed, pulling her into an embrace. "So much for being erased from the guest list. Now you're being offered co-hosting duties." Clara leaned against him, suddenly tired but content. "Do you think she's serious?" "I think Victoria Westfield is many things, but she's not a fool," Alex said. "She recognizes when the world is changing. The question is whether we want to help her change with it." Through the closed door, they could hear the sounds of the reception still going strong. Laughter, animated conversations, connections being made that might change lives far beyond this single evening. "Whatever we decide," Clara said, "I think we've already accomplished what we set out to do." "Which was?" Clara smiled, redrawing the lines of what matters, who matters, and why. Alex kissed the top of her head. "Not bad for a woman who wasn't Westfield material." Clara laughed. I never wanted to be Westfield material. I just wanted to matter on my own terms. You've always mattered, Alex said softly. Victoria Westfield just took a while to notice. Hand in hand, they returned to the reception, to the world they had helped reshape with a single event born from exclusion, but transformed by inclusion. The woman erased from the guest list had not only found her way into the room, but had changed the very nature of the gathering. And in doing so, she had helped create something that would endure far beyond one night of recognition or revenge, a new standard for what truly deserved celebration.